Chris, let's tip things off with UNC and Pitt. UNC demolishing Florida State in the quarterfinals on Thursday, and Pitt getting by Wake Forest with a great defensive effort, even though the Demon Deacons came back in the second half. Ish Leggett was phenomenal, not only shooting the ball from behind the arc, and Blake Hinson too in his own right, but getting on the offensive glass. I think 8 rebounds overall, and 4 of them generating second chance opportunities. But you look at the point spread over at BetMGM Sportsbook. UNC lined -7.5 as of this recording on Friday morning. Total of 147.5. My raw numbers make this closer to UNC -5.5. Haslametrics, our partner over at Haslametrics.com, makes the game closer to UNC -5. So you take that on the surface, bit of an edge toward the Panthers. What do you expect in this semifinals matchup with UNC trying to get a number 1 overall seed and come the NCAA tournament?
Right. Yeah, I think both teams are incentivized in this one, right? I think Pitt wants to solidify, their resume to get in. I think they're good enough to get in today, although there's a lot of basketball left over this weekend. Typically when you meet in the ACC tournament, or it used to be back in the day, that would be the third meeting. This is just the second meeting. Carolina beat Pitt up there early January. That was a weird game if you go back and look at the box score. I think Elliot Kadove only played 15 minutes. He was in foul trouble. That's alarming to me. Blake Hinson didn't shoot well. Harrison Ingram shot poorly. Both teams shot really poorly from 2. To be honest, with this game, I think it comes down to extra possessions, and I think it comes down to rebounding, kind of what you referenced before. Carolina was terrific on the glass yesterday against Florida State. Pitt is not going to get pushed around inside. It's just not going to happen. And so I think the team that can get a little bit of extra possessions inside, maybe defend the rim, is going to have the edge. I like Pitt and that 7.5 number. I think Carolina has more possibilities or more ways to win. They've proven that. But I do think Pitt is strong enough to be in the tournament, and I think they're going to prove it today, although I think Carolina could still maybe edge them out for a win. I wouldn't be surprised either way.
Yeah, and if you follow our bets in our Discord channel, link is over at thelines.com in the top right-hand corner. On Thursday morning, before Pitt took on Wake Forest, I bet Pitt to win the ACC tournament at 16-1. Not saying they're going to win the game outright. Not saying that I make good bets all the time. I also bet Clemson to win the ACC tournament. They got blitzed against Boston College on Thursday. We'll touch on the Eagles here in a bit, losing to Virginia in the quarterfinals on Thursday night. That Clemson Boston College game taking place on Wednesday. But you mentioned that UNC Pitt game going back to mid-January or so. Pitt shot 5 of 29 from 3. So hopefully Blake Hinson is hitting threes from 40 feet out or beyond, maybe before the half-court line, even depending on how confident he is in game. But with UNC's defense, I know they're considered an elite defensive team, and they're playing much better on and off ball since probably late January, early February, especially coming off of that first Duke win. But still, UNC ranks number 327 in college basketball and open three-point attempt rate allowed. So I know Florida State didn't shoot well on Thursday. I thought they would come into the game trying to make more threes, especially with Darren Green's efficiency and when you can get him hot. Positive variance potentially for FSU obviously didn't happen, but Pitt chucks up a lot of threes. I think a top 30 or top 35 three-point attempt rate. And with that, top 30, top 35 three-point scoring rate across college basketball. And also on the glass, you mentioned the Panthers not getting pushed around. Jeff Capel is a great coach, so I expect him to scheme around UNC and take a lot of threes, but also just have a good game plan coming into this game against Hubert Davis, former Duke assistant coach. I'm talking about Capel. But Pitt also ranks top 10 on the defensive glass when it comes to defensive rebounding rate and top 100 in offensive rebounding percentage. I mentioned Leggett getting 4 offensive boards against Wake Forest. That isn't any sort of a fluke. So I know Pitt can be a little bit short rotation-wise, but it's not like they're coming off 3 straight games like NC State is against Virginia. You have one game against Wake Forest, albeit a physical one. I think they compete in this game, and like I mentioned, I think Pitt has a real chance to get to the ACC Conference Tournament Championship game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's somewhat interesting. I think Pitt's won 5 out of the last 7. I saw that graphic. And since Hubert Davis took over at UNC, the there's been some friction between Pitt and North Carolina. Some people say the rivalry is back. I don't know if you followed anything over the past couple seasons with Pitt winning and calling the UNC players soft. And I think there's a little bit something to that. I wouldn't read into the previous meetings all that much. But when you look at this Pitt team, yeah, Hinson obviously is a very confident player. Capel, I think, is really comfortable in his game plan against UNC as well. So I agree with you in terms of they'll be able to kind of assert their will, and I think it will be a physical game. I do think when it comes down to like the open 3-point rate and everything you referenced there, of course, I do think North Carolina has benefited from some shot luck. To what degree, I think that's a really hard thing to quantify, but that's sort of the rub of it, right? They've been a lot better defensively. They haven't switched as much as they did early in the season. It's sort of a wild season to follow from them defensively because the numbers are terrific, but they've had a couple games where like Tennessee scored like over 70% from 2, Dalton Connect going bananas. So it's been an interesting year defensively for them. I think they're pretty well connected, though, for the most part. And I'm starting to really believe in the young freshman, Elliot Cadeau. And you probably can't even call him a freshman anymore. But I think his defense, as of late, has been underrated. And perhaps that's because he's just improved a ton. You have that benefit of when you watch a player who's that young and you don't have a whole lot of, tape on them, if you will. The jumps can be really like high and low. And if he stays out of foul trouble, I think he's kind of been their fire starter lately, getting out and running. And I think his defense can make a difference. But yeah, this should be a dogfight, so to speak.